I think everything's in order now. It should be. So anyways, yes, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I'm very, very honored to have you here.
Thank you for having me and for screening my film.
But all right, so on to my first question. So this film took you 13 years to complete, which is not hard to understand considering you did practically everything yourself and in between a full-time job. So can you tell a little about what kept you going all those years and maybe your creative process during this period?
Okay, that's a very broad question. Let's see. Well, I feel very attached to the characters. Like they feel kind of alive to me. I mean, I not in the way that, you know, animals and people and plants are alive, but still, they have a sort of a life, sort of, and I feel responsible for them and for speaking for them. So just having that love of them, sort of, that helps. And then, you know, being in a community of creators, when I was first starting the film, I was living in San Francisco and I was part of the ASIFA chapter there. And that was incredibly encouraging because so just for those people who don't know, like Blood Teen Whispering was shot in 16 millimeter film because digital filmmaking was still very pricey at the time that I started. Anyway, so I would get develop my role that I may have worked on for a month or more. It's like just a little less than 3 minutes worth of film, and then just screen the work print, which is the one that you get from the lab when you develop it, and they hang on to your negative, and then you're technically not supposed to use that one for like screening. So I'd bring like longer and longer pieces as the months rolled on, and that really helped. And so that kind of helped keep it going. Yeah, having community is really important. So that's what I say to other animators or artists of any kind, even down to quilters. You know, it's like that's also an art form that having a community that can encourage you is important. So it was tough not having funding. I have access to a credit card that I got dangerously deep into debt.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, if you don't have funding and you want to make your stuff, but you don't have enough of a history to be raising funds, and there was no crowdfunding back then,
right.
You know, it's like you have to take a risk and prove what you can do. For some people, they do that during their years in school if they know what they want to do early on. So as I'm teaching animation at the college level, I just started at Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland, and I was teaching in Kansas City Art Institute before. So I can see them like, oh, you are so fortunate that, you know, you went to this because you will leave there with a good portfolio piece. So I left my undergraduate with a lot of paintings because I was a painting major and 1 minute and 16-second film. And so that did get me some attention, but it was harder to make use of because, you know, my computer was 1 gigabyte and that was amazing. And,
right.
You know, I put it online and it was like, you know, that big. I was still, I played around. I played on the Sundance channel. I didn't play at Sundance, but I played on the Sundance channel in the simulation that I have a copy of on VHS that has been lost, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Ones on it, but I've forgotten who they all were because I lost it.
That's sad.
A really bad time. Okay, so first thing, community. The next thing, finding a source of financing it. At first, you know, I was working minimum wage jobs and living in a warehouse with a lot of people, but that becomes a little difficult. And at that point, I had about 10 minutes done. Then there was a brief period of time where like my mother was renting and she left her place and she couldn't afford quite. She was just like a little bit short on what she needed to rent something. And then I'm like, I'm a little short on anything to have roommates. And so we ended up making this like full on adult agreement to be roommates. We tried to make sure it wasn't too heavy on the mother-child part, except for when we needed each other in that way. But you know,
of course,
it actually worked out pretty well. And so I had access to a garage, and which felt like a palatial, amazing thing at the time. And so then comes just the family encouragement. So having family encouragement, that she encouraged me, you know, she took it seriously, and that was cool.
Wow. So, I mean, so you really took a pretty large leap when you first made this film.
Well, it was going to be 12 minutes at first. And then the story kept growing because of all the encouraging people around me. You know, I had more experience in the film realm, not necessarily animation, but in the kind of like the film and storytelling, which I hadn't had as much. I didn't get really a lot of training in that kind of storytelling. And so they gave me a lot of feedback on, you know, well, they go from here to there, but what's the challenge? Like, what? Like, ooh, there's this garden and this garden, you know. And so and a spider, and I got all, and then so I didn't really have the kind of the side antagonists. Like I had like the main protagonist and antagonist, but I didn't really have those at first. And like I have it documented in this book I put together that is the making of Platoon Restoring, and unfortunately there's not a ton of pictures of the making of Platoon Restoring, but I have a lot of the materials there kind of show you the development of Spider-Woman and all these other things. But anyway, so after that period of minimum wage jobs or just secretarial was slightly better, but a lot of temp and just really just trying to survive without working full time. I would at least have a little energy left, so I go 30 hours of work a week. You can kind of still manage. But anyway, so then a friend of mine had moved to LA and said, you know, LA is pretty great. And at that time, it wasn't crazy expensive. It was actually kind of cheap, especially compared to San Francisco. And so I went there, and within a month, I had my first industry animation job. And so then, okay, so then professionalism. So if we've got like community, encouragement, professionalism, and that drove me because then I wanted to keep getting better. And when I moved to LA, I had I think it was about 50 minutes of the film done already. And so then it grew there. So it was already well established, but my skill level just like increased because not only did I have the encouragement of the kind of critiquing, I also had the crucible of an industry based, low budget industry based thing where you're like, this has to be fast, this has to be good, and has to be fast. You can't have it cheap if you want it good and fast, and vice versa. But anyway, so these were cheap, and so they had to be these were cheap, so they had to be fast. So then we try not to sacrifice the good, but sometimes you have to make these really critical, you always have to make something. So anyways, because I had to learn how to work faster and smarter, and you know, and then also learning the tools and actually learning to use like a video reference system. Most of the film is shot without a video reference system. So I get critiqued by today's standards sometimes. I'm like, dude, you try using a full camera with no video reference and let's see what you come up with, you know? But, you know, the last piece of animation was filmed in 2002. So, you know, I am just dying to get Scene in the Sand done so that I can present my fully fleshed, like mature trained animator.
Right.
You know, the epitome of what I can do now, or actually, it's the thing from 2011 to here, from what I could do from 2011 to whenever it's done.
Yeah.
but anyway, those who keep going, it's like the excitement of producing it, and yeah, so.
So I mean, there were a lot of tips you gave there, but so it was mainly community, encouragement, and financial or finance, I guess. These would you say that's sort of the three biggest?
Yeah, I'd say you get almost an A. Let's see. I would add professionalism. You know, just learning how to function as a professional in your chosen industry, whether independent or yeah. So, but yeah.
So let me jump into the next question here. So there have been many comparisons made between your work and that of David Lynch, I've seen especially. And it seems to me like a lot of it is rooted in the idea that you're both artists who make films as opposed to filmmakers who make art. That, of course, and the surrealism imbued in your work. Do you find there to be any truth in this description?
I mean, what is truth, what is not, and what is not? I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. Until someone said that, it hadn't occurred to me to, I mean, I love David Lynch, but other than admiration and trying to kind of, and being sort of inspired that you can still succeed by staying true to what your ideas are. That has always been inspiring. He just sort of goes ahead and he makes the work he wants to make, and some of it's financially successful, some of it isn't. So yeah, I mean, I guess I like that comparison. I think my films aren't really designed with financial success in mind. It isn't a driving factor. I ignored it entirely in Blood, Teen, Red String, coming from the kind of San Francisco tradition of, it's like, DIY, establishment, all this stuff, but who cares? And it's funny when people criticize, I think it's like, I don't remember how long it is now, it's been too long, but it's like the 3-minute clock scene. They're like, this could have been cut way down and pretty short. And I'm like, I got you.
Right. Yeah.
I knew what I was doing there. I wanted to make people feel uncomfortable. It wasn't about the narrative is it's a thread, but I wanted to put people in the environment, and it's supposed to be an uncomfortable environment. I want them to feel uncomfortable. They're meant to, and like some scenes worked better than others, but a lot of things that some people criticize heavily were intentional, and some things, like I said, I was learning, so I do my best. Part of why I pushed to have it be a feature was that I didn't feel like I ever fit very well in the shorts programs. I love shorts programs because they expose you to a lot of different things, but on the other hand, you can't stay in those worlds for very long, so you kind of forget. You just kind of like pull. It's kind of like it represents today, I guess. Now it's like you just see a little of something, and we're just pulled to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Right. I want to create an environment, an immersive environment, to the best of my ability at the time, that people could stay in and hold their attention. And it's not for everyone. I've noticed that recently I read a review from way back that was in Fangoria, and it was one of those, it's like it should have been cut into a short. But there are people who really get why it's long, and they're like, this was comforting to me, and I watch it over and over. And I'm like,
right. I've seen it been called cozy horror. I've seen some people describe it as that.
I haven't heard that term, but when I started making it, it didn't occur to me that it was part of the horror genre, but I have been embraced by some people in the horror genre, like Heidi. Honeygutt just has a book come out. I Spit on Your Celluloid, like it just came out, and there's a couple pages of Blood, Teen, Red String in that. And then the other thing that just came out is All the Haunts Be Ours, a compendium of folk horror volume 2. So it's a 13-disc Blu-ray compendium of folk horror. This is the only Blu-ray DVD of Blood, Teen, Red String out there right now. There's no other. Pack. Yeah, it's part of this set at severinfilms.com.
Okay.
SEVERIN films.com. I'm so excited about it. It's been in the works for like 3 years, and I've been like not supposed to talk about it, and finally yesterday I can talk about it.
Okay, that's great. This is a bit more like a personal to me, I guess. So I've noticed that your work deals a lot with distortions of the human body. So sort of bodily harm and mutilation, but also anthropomorphism and sort of symbolic renditions of the human form. Where does this fascination come from? And what do you think makes you drawn to these sort of anatomical distortions?
You asked me a question differently than I've been asked before. Okay, cool. Okay, I love that. But I have to take me a second to really think about it. I may have to just start with a tangent to lead into it. So bodily distortion. So the whole kind of doll and torn doll and thing really comes from when I was about 19 or 20. Like in art school, I think about how the students now are supported with all this mental health care, and I'm thinking, my God, if I had been supported with mental health care, I mean, amazing. I mean, I mean, I don't know, but but I had to work these things out kind of in my art alone. But anyway, I feel I probably had various problems like body dysphoria, some events in my life that were traumatizing. I felt really, it's taken me a really long time to be comfortable in my own skin. And I would say back then I was not comfortable in my own skin. So I felt like I need to clothe myself to deal with the world. And like, so I guess it's kind of like a mask maybe. So then that becomes in my art or sometimes a literal mask. And then there's the feeling of being free of it. I think the very first drawing I did that I can recall, tearing open my stomach and all these blackbirds of crows flying out. So it's this kind of freedom. And so then that sort of felt a little out of my sketchbook, and to paint that felt too visceral. So I painted it happening to a doll. And that was where the doll started to enter my artwork. So I think it's a lot of this has been like decades of kind of coping with my own sort of feelings of needing to kind of shield myself as I explore the outside world. It doesn't feel like it just pertains to me. I start to feel like this is something that is a problem with female identifying people, is this kind of comp of like, you want to dress up because you feel really good, but you also dress up to like create this persona so people understand who you are at first glance, or to protect yourself, or to be either like appealing or intimidating. It's like, you have to think about like, what do I want to be today? Do I want to be intimidating or appealing? And you know, I got outfits for each, you know. But it's feeling like how the representation of, you know, like where are our little meat sacks, you know?
Yeah.
Is our mind and our mind and body, like how do they really relate? I mean, what are they for? You know, what is it for? I mean, whatever we do to our aesthetic appearance is perceived as in some specific way by other people, and they don't all perceive it the same way. But anyway, so the body.
But so in that case, would you call sort of your work therapeutic, since you didn't have the access to mental health, you know, sort of assistance as they do now?
My early work, maybe, or just perpetuating a personal melodrama. But like the impact is there still, but it's a lot more intentional, I think, maybe sometimes, or like which the inspirations as I continue to work on them stay pure, but it really, I don't choose to act upon everything that enters my journals and sketchbooks. And I think I tend to be a little more intentional on how I weave these sort of inspirations together. And, you know, I've learned a lot since then. I mean, I started, I hate to like date myself, but it's too late. I mean, it's the internet. But anyway, you know, I mean, in my 20s, you know, if I had the same mindset about anything that I had in my 20s, I mean, where would, but it's not that way. I mean, now I'm much older, and I have, you know, a child who is like almost the same age that I was when I started my film, and I'm like, but there is a certain like just a contemplation. We say a contemplation rather than a battle. But like the dolls for me they're still fairly representational. I don't really know if I'm ever gonna leave them behind. They just kind of follow me and morph their meanings to fit what I'm trying to say. And then it was kind of interesting with my installation, which on my YouTube channel you can't see documentation of it. I did it twice so far with the dolls. The dolls kind of gutted and hanging from power poles.
Yeah. I saw those.
Cool. And people got stuff from it that I did not perceive or really intend, simply because it was that show happened. The second time the show happened was when like Roe v. Wade was overturned. So the dolls are gutted and they're broken eggs on the ground below them. With, you know, there is nobody's saying what happened with those broken eggs. Like my imagination is that something escaped from the broken eggs, but then someone was taking it as kind of a commentary in some way of the Roe versus Wade, and I was like,
right.
because this was, I consider more in the fine art realm, it, they're not wrong, they're not right. You know, it's like
Right.
I'm like, I am I'm female identifying. My experiences and my worries for people with wombs is, real.
Mm.
My concern with people with wombs, really, you know, so I'm like, I appreciate that is something that a conversation that the installation brought up, whether even though it wasn't necessarily what I was thinking. But that's the thing about art, how it can keep speaking to new decades and new issues. Because I'm
Mm.
noticing now that Blood Tea's been out for almost 2 decades, people are getting different things from it, and it's inspiring conversations in different about different things. Like
Right.
originally, it was more about class differences, um, and now the many conversations I see about it or discussion on or reviews has to do with the bodily autonomy and
Mm.
like the female, and I'm like, that was there and I see it, and
Right.
but I didn't really edit my inspiration. I followed it and curated it,
Mm.
and so I can't promise that I know everything I was thinking. I was thinking that
Right. Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense, I think. I think maybe I'll do this one since we were kind of in that territory. So you've stated that much of your work is semi-autobiographical. That's a little what you were saying earlier as well, if subconsciously. And much of your own personal mythos and symbolism influences your work. But do you think that your work has also influenced you in return?
Oh, wow. Yes, I think so. Um, okay, so I guess you want to hear potential examples. Yes is never the answer. The interview is never a satisfying answer. Um, well, I think we discussed earlier that the work is sometimes cathartic, um, and it is comforting to me. Even some of the more horrifying scenes or actions of my characters that are totally secret still and nowhere on the internet. So you'll just have to wait and wonder what I'm talking about. Or from Blood Team String as well. Um, they do, it is kind of instructive to me. It's kind of like my subconscious or kind of my filter of all the influences coming towards me. I mean, it's kind of both. I mean, I guess the subconscious is the filter, and then what it releases to you is hopefully helpful in many ways or instructive. You
Mm.
know, I've been. I can't right now because this is you've come up with some truly new questions for me, and this is great. But I don't
Oh,
like
I'm glad to hear
I
that.
don't have any stock answers for it. So congratulations. um, so say with the white mice, the doll has no agency, and they're just doing their thing and trying to force her to do their thing. And I don't know about you, but I've been in situations where I am a little bit powerless to leave, and just being there with others who are may not who seem sinister but are maybe not particularly sinister towards me. Just kind of, but identifying too much with the doll is not probably healthy, because that the doll, I feel like the doll sort of represents something to be cast off. It's the wrong end of that caterpillar that looks like a head. It's
Mm.
like look over here, and then don't look at the real. Where I feel like I definitely identify with the bird girl,
Mm.
in that she does symbolize a sort of loss of innocence and a being thrust into a world she does not understand. And I fared much better than her. But one must always watch out for those webs and not get caught in them. As with art, you can see yourself in all of your characters somehow, because uh, if you believe, the psychoanalytic kind of idea that that in your dreams you are all of the characters in dreams, and I don't ascribe to that. Nor do I decline to think that it does have some merit. I think that my work in general has helped me grow into a more sort of stable and functional human being. Just helping my characters kind of work out their issues. I don't know. Did you have any insight that you wanted to help prod the answer to this question?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much I can say since it's directed very towards you yourself.
But I'm having a hard time seeing it.
No, I was maybe thinking more of sort of how you perceive life now. If maybe going into these different characters have sort of changed your view on certain things.
Okay,
or
that helps. Okay, so if one were to assume, perhaps rightly, that I identify with the doll. Now, in Blood, Tea, and Red String, the doll is lifeless, has no agency. Things are done with her and to her, but not by her. Whereas if you see the rag dolls, and these are things that are available to see clips of online. So I'm not telling that there are secrets you need to know because they're not going online. Well, until the film is released, and then that's when you lose control over it. But the dolls in this film, while they are in the dream realm, they have a lot of agency and they're threatening. You know, they're not particularly nice. So we have a split now between the doll and the masked woman, where in Blood, Tea, and Red String, these are together because the porcelain kind of mask-ish, doll head, and then the rag doll body. But now they are split into two characters that are kind of at odds with each other.
Right.
But both have some agency. So I would say that definitely echoes my experience of the world, of feeling kind of lost, out of place. I wouldn't say helpless exactly, but just not clear on where my place is in it, other than, just working on my artwork, which is my safe space. I think about, now I've been teaching for 10 years, and the person who started Blood, Tea, and Red String, could not stand in front of an audience without hyperventilating. So yeah, I don't know which is the mirror, and which isn't. I think I'm not sure that having made this gives me that, but I think this is sort of the echo of my experience goes into my film. Someone will have to psychoanalyze me based on
right.
It's not available to be. It's not finished, and it's not available to be analyzed. We're intentionally trying to keep all but the simplest storyline kind of shrouded,
Yeah.
But the thing is, we need support. So, and plus this long project, I need people to like it.
Of course.
Tell me so, because it helps me keep going, and that is the community portion of the pillar, the four pillar thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get it done at some point soon, but I have the most ambitious shots are what's left. So I'm about 54 minutes in. A lot of the music's done.
Ooh.
I have about 35 minutes left of animation and some live action. It's going to require some actual funding to do it the way I want to do it. It's like I've got the doing all the intimate scenes and the smaller interiors and the tree cover, the spaces I have are very workable for that. But the ones that give the film the broadness and the scope and the landscape and the sense of this Scene in the Sand is much more cinematic, I have been told by my collaborators.
Yeah.
And I agree. Then Blood, Tea, and Red String is things are very close and
confined.
But yeah, kind of confined, because it was all shot on a 4x5 table.
Which also kind of makes sense, as it's all supposed to be inside of this teapot, right?
Yeah, I didn't think about that exactly, but yeah, okay, good. Again.
But since you're talking about this topic, I thought maybe I could jump to this next question, which is that you've now been working on Seed in the Sand, which is the second installment in what will become a trilogy.
Oh, no, it's not a trilogy anymore.
It's not.
That's the problem with the internet, that what you say it never leaves. I no longer consider it a trilogy.
Okay.
In a kind of a spiritual sense, yes, because it's all kind of a flow. I call it flow, but it's not a true trilogy. It grew into something else. My early thoughts were that it was, but then it just grew into something else.
Okay, no, but that's good. Now so hopefully we can help to sort of end that whole trilogy bit.
Yeah,
but so without the trilogy bit, the question is, have there been any new challenges this time around compared to Blood Tea and Red String?
Oh my God, this will take about this, but it's hard to edit down. Well, we'll start with the things. How about the things that are less challenging, simply because technology has advanced to a point where it's easier to shoot film because I'm using a DSLR camera. I can see all my paths of action. I can animate very smoothly because of Dragon Frame. Those have made it easier. But my responsibilities in my life have increased dramatically. So more mental energy is expended when you are a faculty member than is expended when you are even when you are on an animation crew, because when you go home, you're home and you're not working. But like, that's what I love about teaching. And also I see it is also a challenge to like turn off that, because I get really inspired, because teaching is in some ways an art form. And so it excites me in that way. But it's keeping, when I'm like, I got to put this syllabus down because I scheduled this time to work on it, and I'm like, I have an idea for the syllabus, and I'm, so it's just keeping all my like baskets a little bit separated, because they all blend together. And like I mentioned earlier, I have a kid who's now a young adult, and still very much, our lives are still very much entwined, and their entire life has been lived while I am working on an animated project. So it's also making sure to keep a basket of time for family life, which I did not used to need to do. Dogs are way less demanding. But I also have one of those still. But it has more to do with keeping my time compartmentalized, and it's funny, I'm actually more efficient animating during the school year than in the summer.
Oh, really?
I can get more done in the summer as long as I have it planned out. But like, it's just
while the engine is going.
Something about the raises the adrenaline levels, maybe, I don't know, but it's just like I can schedule to put into. And also, and then on the difficult side is fundraising, because my ideas are bigger now. Like I have musicians who and collaborators, and I have more people involved whose life are more impacted by my decisions, my delays, and my other things. So those are the challenges, is carving out the time, and I feel I've managed that. I'm pretty pleased with how I've managed that for the most part. But yeah, right now it's really the biggest challenge is this last 35 minutes approximately, because storyboards only give you an estimation, because it's like I've either made it 10 seconds or 5. It's a longer shot or a shorter shot, and that's not the whole length of the shot. It's the sort of estimated length of the shot.
Right.
I have the whole thing storyboarded, and the biggest challenge I think is just like getting over this last hurdle when I actually need more people to be involved, because it is so cinematic and it is so large. This little workspace I've carved out in my living room, this is a little spare workspace, it's just not going to work. So I'll have to do one of two things, and I don't have to make a decision on it yet. I need to raise a significant sum, or I need to scale back into the small confines of a teapot world, but I do not want to do that. So I'm still, my collaborators we're working on raising the funds. So we'll not quite ready to consider a crowdfunding thing again yet, but that it's still, that's still on the table. But for now, we're working on raising the funding and the, kind of get through at least the independent film gatekeepers and really get this done the way I can see that it needs to be done. And in some ways, like with Blood Teen Red String, I didn't know really the possibilities, and I always assumed this was an odd little film made by an oddball in a garage. So I never saw beyond keeping it in that realm. So I was satisfied to just keep working on making sure I always had a space about the size of a garage, and I got it done. But with this film and with all my experience in the professional world, I can see where I actually want to take this into that realm. It's still an art film, but like an art film with funding.
Right.
When I was awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2019, which is some people know about it, some people don't, but for those who are not aware of it, it's a pretty significant career highlight, and it comes with a chunk of money that is unrestricted. And that was amazing. And because I could hire people for this chunk of time, and I made this amazing amount of progress, then it's gonna taste it.
Yeah.
This is what it's like to really be able to pay people and have them be able to take the time away from their other things to come and focus.
Right.
I do have people who want to come and focus on my film, but they need to survive, and unless I can provide that for them.
So that's the biggest hurdle now is finance.
Finance, that is it. And I'm not in a position to rack up a lot of debt anymore.
Understandable. Very understandable.
I'm just not in that position anymore. I learned my lesson the first time. You can do it once, but don't do it twice.
Right. Okay, that's another good lesson. Another very good lesson. So stop motion has always been a bit niche, but it's still managed to keep quite a steady following, and even with big directors like Wes Anderson and recently Guillermo del Toro. Working with a medium, but also smaller, well, you could say smaller independent films, but you have the example of like Phil Tippett's Mad God, releasing to a bigger audience on Shudder, though not as big as it deserved, if you ask me. And you also have examples like a studio working exclusively with stop motion. So from your standpoint, what is the future of stop motion?
Well, I don't think it's going to go away. I think having it adapting to all the new stop motion tools created by people passionate with stop motion have brought it into this century. Like, thank God for Dragon Frame. Oh my God! But I also I think it may be at its height in certain ways, and the thing is, it's whether something's stop motion or not, it at its base, it needs to be a compelling story. Whether it's stop motion or not isn't as critical, but it is a beautiful tactile medium. So if you can draw people in, there tends to be a certain fascination for it because of its reality. And CG can almost get there, but it doesn't. But then
it loses that tactility.
It does and it doesn't. I don't know when, like on Curse of the Were-Rabbit, that's been out for that's like 2005. But like there's some CG that you won't realize is CG. There's these little bunnies, these little clay bunnies that are in the little vacuum thingy when they're vacuuming up the bunnies.
Oh, right, yeah.
Those bunnies are CG, but the textured thumbprints on them.
Oh.
They look like clay. And with
Wow.
with Leica's films, while like let's say the primary characters and stuff are generally stop mo, there's a lot of CG in those films.
Mm.
Like if you look at them, some of the making of like in the box trolls, a lot the dancers that are behind the primary characters, there's a lot of CG in that.
Mm.
So they are hybrid films, and then kind of like how live action. There's a lot of live action films that are really
Yeah, yeah,
animated films, but the
absolutely.
public doesn't perceive them as animated films because there's live action. There's enough live action that keeps them there.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the boundaries are more porous. So I think that it's it's less like with the first Terminator, that it was stop motion and you can tell. I
Mm.
think in those sort of like high budget films, less and less stop motion model building for those. And I think that is probably going to continue, unfortunately. Although I definitely have a soft spot for like the original series as the original of Star Trek, as the original series of Star Trek without the CG. But now that my kid is also a Trekkie and now immediately knows more about it all than me because they're actually doing all this research and forums and like a level of engagement that I never have done. It's like, oh, so we're gonna get the DVD that has the version on it that has the original model maker's work on it. So we had to make sure that we get that one, and I'm like full agreement about that. So I mean, one could hope that we could still have more like model makers and stop motion within live action films, but probably not. But stop motion films, I think it's gonna maintain I think it's gonna maintain its place. That whether they're gonna be huge big budget or not, I don't know. But I don't think it's going anywhere. There's still a really big passion. So, I mean, we'll see. It just
Yeah.
as long as people wanting to make stop motion, there will be stop motion things to watch.
Absolutely. I think and I hope you're right.
Me too.
And has there been any recent stop motion work that you've been excited about? I remember you mentioned the movie Stop Motion, but
Yeah, that one. Like I have mixed feelings about it because like as a film animator, sometimes I'm like, feel that way about but it's still I feel very proud of Robert Morgan for like making that film, and then it's very very interesting and good and disturbing and all those things, and of course the newest Del Toro's Pinocchio, and I love Pinocchio, but I also just like love to hear Del Toro talk about making Pinocchio. He did that 30-minute short on Netflix that he's talking. Like,
he's so passionate.
It's not a genre; it's an art form. It's just like, yes, you understand. as long as he's around and excited about stop motion, so definitely hope. A lot of some of the really exciting things are also in shorts because not everyone is completely lunatic enough to try to spend decades working on a stop motion feature. So one of my favorite like short filmmakers, Ainslie Henderson.
Okay.
He made this film called Stems. It's been out for a little while now, 2018, but it is so heartrendingly, adorably beautiful. I can't. I saw it and then I hadn't seen it for a little while, and then I was playing it for for a class, and I was like, and here's one that's gonna make you feel. Here's a really cute one, and then by the end of like, it said it's gonna be cute. Oh my god! I was like, I forgot it was so sad with the character. But anyway, it's very touching and Stems, yeah, highly recommend. And he has another one that one that's a little older called Timeless, which is really it's like an experimental thing. So most of these are available on his Vimeo site.
Okay.
Stems was unavailable for a little while, and last I checked, you can still see it. I actually wrote him a letter on email. I was like, can you please make sense of it? Again, I need to show it to my class. And there's another one I wanted to shout out because I love it. And it's called Nocturne or Nocturne by Breymann.
Okay.
Brymann. That it came out in 2016, so it's not like their newest work. But it feels like an adjacent universe in some ways. There's this a lot of very natural substances used in the creation of the environment and the characters, and kind of inexplicably just like disturbing. And I feel like there's a lot of symbolism at work in this one as well. And so little beat creatures participating in this ritual, and it's also no dialogue. So I feel like people who like my work would also like this. And then, well, I was really, really excited when House came out on, the animated The House, not the other House. Because I just loved all 3 installments, and I felt like it was like kind of if an adjacent universe to mine had characters that spoke, and yeah, well done, and I kind of want to go watch it again, and then that Wildwood, that like is going to.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely hopeful. So, but and I was at a CIFA event in Portland. It's my first Portland CIFA, which is, for those who may not know, is an animated something all in French, and I always forget, but it's the Animation Society that is worldwide and has chapters everywhere. Excitedly discussed the upcoming Wildwood. So I have read the book, and it was very good. And so I say with Leica films, like, love them, they're beautiful. I'm not trying to make anything that clean, but I definitely have enjoyed the, and like I'm blanking out the one that had the Bigfoot in it. Can't remember the name of it at the moment.
A Missing Link.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Like, it was stop motion, but they used CG to make his hair blow.
Oh.
I read the whole explanation of it, and I don't recall exactly, but they had some kind of color on the tip. I don't know. I can't talk about it because I forgot. I read about it at the time I was talking about it for class, and then now it's just like, it's gone.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the thought-provoking questions. And
thank you so much for agreeing to do this and answering all my questions, even the stupid ones.
There's no stupid questions. It's just everything starts a conversation.